Got tired of building CRUD apps, lol. I worked at Google building internal tools for a while. It took me 2 years to realize that the reason I was annoyed is that this process was surprisingly repetitive, in that it was effectively a bunch of little create, read, update, delete apps for different users, with internal frameworks that have no semblance to anything in the real world. So I quit and spent the last couple of months building out a GPT-4-driven tool that does the work for me. Idea is that your web backend API's routes get traced, locally only, by a library I built, and then the AI uses this understanding to make changes to the route for whatever feature you want to support or route you want to change. Here's a demo video, youtube.com/watch, and you can try it for VS Code here. Video.com studio.items decipher to VS Code. Example, update the checkout route's response to include a recent purchases count so the frontend can show how often other users have shopped here. AI looks at the locally stored traces and suggests the changes to do this in 30s. By tracing the code and looking at existing patterns in your code, the results are way more accurate. Code changes just work for Node, Express, Django, Flashkits, etc. changes than other tools I've tried. Hope it helps and would love your thoughts. Are you saying most apps in real-world software are CRUD apps and my imposter syndrome should go down? I'm an architect, and 99% of applications I worked with are glorified skins for databases, or just a portal to CRUD multiple databases at once, or a portal to that portal. We don't talk about iframes. Zeroth rule. What were the 1%? Yeah, I second this question. Isn't that literally what an app is? Actually, my main current work project, a multi-tenant corporate API publishing platform for a Fortune 500 company. Most of it is an API gateway based on Envoy and various satellite services to automate its configuration and deployment and self-service capabilities around it. Every day I think it should be so much simpler, multiple times. Applications for creating, calculating, simulating, automating, controlling, analyzing, visualizing, etc. At the risk of being downvoted, a lot of people who are frustrated with their careers in software development are really working as integrators or implementers. I guess a lot of people, myself included, go down the basic app route and then find themselves in too deep to switch to more interesting dev work. Yep, it pays the bills and the jobs are plentiful. I often felt like all my work in my early days in Microsoft Access, making forms that people found easier to use than running queries, was just converted to doing the same. But instead of Access, it is HTML. That's one way to look at it. A huge amount of apps, known as websites, are just CR apps that rarely U or D. Not only are most apps CRUD, but they are only tools for business. Embrace it and derive your satisfaction in improving the business, and you'll be a happy dev. Otherwise, do it as a hobby. Yes, but also yes. CRUD backend is very fun, and tools like OPs will only make it more fun. Making front-end forms is what sucks ass, and ChatGPT helps with that too. Angular reactive forms go whee! I like the idea, and we'll see more AI involvement in the development process, specifically for building internal tools. There is a github.com/refinedev refine framework for building CRUD apps by eliminating the repetitive processes as mentioned in the post. Have you had a chance to review it? Check this out, seems really nice. I left my old job quite quickly because of the perspective of building CRUD apps for years day in, day out. Fortunately, found a nice, seemingly more diverse niche for me. Username checks out. That's until you have to check 3 different cookies who load at different times and have different information when they should have the same. And you have to evaluate them just to see if you should pre-fill the email field for the sign-in form. Yep, and front-end dev is basically just forms and lists. One sec. Going to ask my boss if we can load our proprietary code into some random AI tool. He just responded, "No fucking way." Edit. Anybody else tired of ChatGPT wrappers? You mean your patented CRUD app? Code async function OpenAI fetch API var url.openai.com/v1/v engine/davinci/completions var bearer equals bearer your token const res equals await fetch URL method post headers authorization bearer content type application JSON body JSON.stringify prompt once upon a time max tokens 5 temperature 1 top P1 N1 stream false log probs null stop return response.json. The secret code to create a startup in 2024. Yep, I just got it tattooed on my back. We're gonna be rich, bro. What else is the point of OpenAI? Wait, do we work for the same boss? Anybody else tired of ChatGPT wrappers? It's the flavor of the day. Aren't GPT wrappers similar to pinging service APIs? Why should we get tired from them then? Cool advert, bro. This is an ad. Yup, had me up until I quit my job to. The thought of someone quitting their job at Google in this job market to work on a plausibly profitable project is just ridiculous to me. Every time I hear I quit my job to build this, I roll my eyes. It's especially weird since this is like a hackathon-level project. And it likely only works with Python. Anyone who quits their jobs to start a company without doing any research is not the businessman I would like to do business with. What if they take my money and quit this business to start another shiny new business? Read this post thinking there was some new amazing alternative to CRUD apps. Nope, just another fucking ChatGPT wrapper. It'll be cool when OpenAI increases their prices 10x and puts an end to these wrapper startups. Would that do it? The wrappers will just up their prices then. 3 days left in local trial. Oh, so this is an ad. TLDR, it's an ad for the OP's VS Code plugin. When using Decipher, is any of my code transmitted anywhere? Or does Decipher have any sort of phone home features? Curious about this as well. Nah, it won't store code on the server side. Your code stays local. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. It does store whatever is in the chat history, though, so you can load your conversations later. But this is one advantage over using ChatGPT since OpenAI stores the code indefinitely and train the model with what you give them. Decipher won't do that. What is a phone home feature? I thought it would need to send queries to ChatGPT or other LLM and then get responses that have analyzed the specific query data. How is it able to run calculations/recommendations for your local code without interacting with the mothership LLM? It absolutely does. OP is full of shit. He says he's not using OpenAI, yet he's using OpenAI through Azure. What OP is doing, but you can run ChatGPT locally. You can run LLMs locally if you have good enough hardware. You cannot run ChatGPT. It's proprietary. Correct if we're talking about ChatGPT4 specifically, but you can ref copymate.app/blog/can you run ChatGPT-locally/xt? Yes, once ChatGPT 10 is installed, forfend initial setup and send updates. Run older versions entirely offline. GPT-2 is worthless in today's AI model market. Yeah, that's fair. Telemetry, monitoring user activity, and sending it back to a central server. Dicla quo. Nah, it won't store code on the server side. Your code stays local. Did you use GPT to write this completely non-unique wrapper as well? How can you be this ignorant of your own code? Wow, ads. Very impressive. Worked at Google. Doesn't use Google AI products. Lol. I don't trust Sundar to put something truly on par out for years. It's impressive, but as a dev in this scenario, I would prefer the AI to focus on the core components, methods, routes involved, with less emphasis on the final solution, so that I get up to speed faster and then make the architectural decision myself. There is no shortcut to a human legible code base, otherwise what you have is not really meaningful code. You might as well be manually editing binary printouts. The paradox of AI is that we have enabled natural language as a coding language, but the purpose of code was always to be more precise than natural language. It's not enough to just speak a program into existence. Code is meant to provide a level of certainty that natural language, almost by definition, cannot provide. What would be awesome, and you may have all the tools for this already, open all the files related to this CRUD task, and then have them all pre-selected for you. For real, have a real human with a brain look at a code base, and then they can take the overall goal, present order statistics if available, and know where to make the changes. Then that person can type model should include this field if available, and do that in the model and the repo and the interface, and done. Does this work on large code bases? How do you verify that the code the LLM writes is complete, i.e. it didn't forget to update some related piece of code for a feature in a random file? It works on a couple large open source code bases to 100K files that I tried. Good question on the full completion. I want to have it generate tests and run those tests on the generated code to be sure it works, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Really curious about your methodology for code generation. I've tried a couple times to get an LLM to generically write new features in a code base, but haven't figured out a good solution yet. How do you feed 100K plus files to an LLM? Embeddings? Oh, you definitely can't feed all the files. It's all about which specific context you give the LLM. So that's why monitoring the endpoints in your product helps it narrow the context. And then yes, embeddings are also used to find additional relevant context. This is simultaneously both great and terrifying. You know, I have those thoughts sometimes too. Then I realize it's probably inevitable at this point, and the existential dread consumes me. It just confirms a lot of what I've been thinking about. I think CRUD devs, which a staggering percent of devs are good. Use your head for something that wasn't quoted by one of the greatest minds as insanity. Redundance is a problem that can be solved with automation, which allows for more creative issues to be solved. Dude, I'm good. I'm an electronic engineer, do dev work for side projects, freelance and stuff. It's just scary for guys that are, say, full-stack CRUD devs on top money. Like, it's coming, man. Unless the internet somehow vastly changes in the way in which we utilize it, it's looking bleak for many. I think most white-collar jobs are in serious jeopardy. ChatGPT is already better at half them than humans are. I give it 10 years max before programming just becomes prompt engineering. I say this as a software engineer. A lot of my colleagues are sticking their heads in the sand. I think that LLMs will continue to make programming easier, especially for repetitive tasks like the OPs. It'll also make learning new languages, frameworks, concepts, and workflows a lot easier for experienced programmers as well. I think over the next 10 years, we'll see a drastic expansion of these helper elements being added to IDEs, drastically improving productivity. But fully replacing programmers and programming languages might be a stretch. Yeah, for doing anything substantial, but the overwhelming, vast majority of web development isn't groundbreaking at all. What won't be a stretch is software engineering compensation spiraling into the ground and everyone abandoning it over time. Then we'll have a near future where there are SWE and teacher shortages, where there's plenty of jobs to live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of your life and never get ahead. I think they are too, dude. Obviously, the guys that are doing groundbreaking stuff is one thing. They'll always be cool. Anyone working on systems that can have an LLM train on their own data and replicate it, add additions based on other training data are screwed. Hi, I'm a shitter CS student coding entirely with Cursor and GPT-4. I made 3 landing pages today for 2K. I genuinely don't know syntax nor how to code, and I abuse GitHub templates and AI. I think I am the people taking CS jobs, because before AI I was a business major. Sorry. Edit, I will also be abusing the fuck out of this SAS widget. Thank you, OP. Careful. You'd be vulnerable to hacks if you have no clue how things actually work. Just a warning. There are predators out there that prey on folk like what you just described. Yeah, eventually, I'd like to be more competent coding, and I'm using this to teach myself, and I'm just having fun with it. I respect the real engineering that goes into these things, but web dev is tedious and I'm impatient, giving myself some time to learn as I go. You won't be the one taking CS jobs, it'll be other businesses. I will make such businesses. I wish you the best of luck, but there's already hundreds of people that already have a lot of resources that are trying to do the same. 3 landing pages for 2K is not a threat to what I'm doing as an employed software engineer. I'd also question how many hours you spent on these projects so you can get an idea of the current value to yourself. 2K over a day, amazing. 2K over a month, not great, but necessary if you gotta eat. When someone like you is able to build the entire stack to real-time data insight, all the event-driven architecture, the servers, the databases, front-end and back-end, and all debugging and optimization and maintenance and support, all with just using GPT tools and understanding zero of the code and design, that's when we'll all be fucked, and at best getting paid minimum wage. When I see signs of that, I will yet again make an effort to transition to a different discipline. If every discipline has been consumed by AI at that time and nobody in the working class without inherited equity can escape poverty, suicide also works if I can't win the lottery in time. I'm just learning how to do it and learning very fast using AI. Eventually, I will be at your level. The barrier to entry has just been lowered, is all. Odd how both of you have opposite yet valid strong point. This is kind of cool, but raises a question. I noticed that Decipher did change the code and maybe the comment for the function, but not the function name itself. Do that 100 times, and you might end up with code that a human cannot work on efficiently, if at all, anymore. One could say, well, I got the AI to work on the code for me. What do I care if I'm still able to understand my code? Right, but now you're dependent on that AI. What if the cost for that tool suddenly is raised by 10%, 100%, 1,000%? What if privacy conditions change and your product is now open source? What if the AI can't solve a use case for you? And so, since I don't have much experience with AI and LLMs, does Decipher rely on the architecture of the codebase as well to build its model? Are design patterns, naming, and other coding conventions relevant for it to understand how the code works? If yes, then it's just doing the same as humans, possibly sabotaging itself up to a point where it's more efficient to rewrite the whole thing, just at a much faster pace. If not, we end up even more dependent on that AI. Yeah, bro. You quit your Google job to create a GPT wrapper. Calling bullshit, lol. So this is basically Copilot chat with a twist. It already does pretty much all of that, sans the traffic monitoring, which just feels gimmicky. I made a gem and package to handle the amount of generic CRUD tables and forms we were making at work for both internal and external purposes. Quick generator and boom, new screens are up and running. Just need to tweak for any improved UX copy. Even tests are done. Moving it to a GPT seems inevitable, as it's very repeatable and predictable work to provide this functionality. It's not where we want to be spending our time as devs. Realistically, what percentage of web devs are doing anything more than CRUD? Airbnb, Twitter, etc. made billions by effectively being CRUD apps on the cruddiest of them all, Ruby on Rails. So you uploaded it 3 hours ago? Totally unrelated question. How did you do the presentation in the YouTube video? Like the smooth zoom, nice transcript, and so forth? It's looking flawless. Oh, this might be an interest. Never mind, it's an ad. excellent app will be useful. What's the point of paying for a service just to have you perform additional steps, like loading your entire codebase in a third-party tool, waiting for a few minutes, doing a dry run of the request, clicking a button, then doing back and forth with GPT, and then typing an entire essay just to get few lines of code? Who really is the target user for this plugin? Any half-decent coder can figure out the code change shown here without the entire AI-involved steps. Any beginner won't be able to write this level of codebase. Anyone else can do a quick Google search and then produce the correct code with the help of built-in auto-completion. This is an example of AI hindrance, not AI assistance. The entire universe is a giant CRUD app if you want to look at it that way. So you just changed the input. You practically have an English-to-code translator working at a basic level. I wonder if I wasn't a programmer how I'd give it these specific instructions. Get over the hype now, please. I'm curious how this works with code bases that make requests to external APIs. So, when are you going to get tired of building LLM wrapper apps? That's insane. Anything that understands the code and then is able to make changes based on English is 100% the future. Great work. AI is scary, and I go between it'll never get that scary to holy shit, what will it be capable of? This is awesome. Whoa! Does this work with any code base, say, for example, a full-stack remix app, JavaScript? What I would do to at least work, even if it was CRUD apps. Does it work with Laravel? Decipher is intercepting API endpoint calls. How does that work? Is there some setup needed to get it to do that? Update. It does not work with Laravel. Great idea. What did you use to record the video? Thank you. Recording software is screen.studio/. This is so cool. Demo video font too small to view. Seems like a very thoughtful product. Does it work on desktop? Does manually changing quality help? Dude, this is awesome. Is there any programming language restrictions or can it handle anything? Any plans of making it open source? This is insane if it works like you say it does and how I think it does. Awesome. So much imagination in my mind. I've been thinking of building a CRUD app generator in Flask. You just made a CRUD? At what level does it understand the code? I mean, if I told it to make a change in every endpoint, would it be able to, or would I need to go one by one? I'll use my use case. I need to turn a full-stack Django app in an API. So turning every endpoint that renders HTML in an endpoint that returns JSON could decipher do such thing. Considering the one I'm working is a very big code base, I don't see the purpose of the recording step from a dev perspective. Describing what you want to change should be all the context it needs, in theory. Also, you're racing against Microsoft. I can imagine Copilot including something like this within the next months. It's almost there anyway. Demo looks really cool, though. I am curious about how you would go about to train a custom GPT for a specific purpose like that. Any info or links on TVIS would be much appreciated. Nice idea, but we have our own code generator, CRUD, we lazy developer. Bro, why are you killing us? I think you're going to need to let us know a little bit more about how it works under the hood. What LLM does it use, for example? It seems useful, but shipping code off to an AI API is going to be concerning for a lot of people. Just a suggestion, it would be awesome if your lib could detect and write tests. This is cool as fuck. I would love to see a version that could be given access to a directory on a backend as a working directory via SSH/access to system logs, so I could debug a remote app without having to replicate the environment on my system. Does it work? /PHP?